Welcome back to Placemaking in the Algorithm. I'm Wetu.
And I'm Enrique. And today we're taking on something we've been circling since episode 1, the algorithm. But not just as a techie buzzword. We're asking, what if the algorithm is actually planning our cities? In segment 1, we aim to answer, what is the algorithm doing to urban space?
So let's slow this down. Imagine you want to find a new coffee spot in Johannesburg. You don't open Google Maps. You open TikTok instead. You scroll, you see the rooftop cafe in Rosebank again, that minimalist brunch spot in Parkhurst, the same views, the same hashtags, the same vibes. It's not just a coincidence, it's curation.
This is what we mean when we say the algorithm produces space. It doesn't build the city, but it filters it and frames it. It decides what parts of the city are worth seeing, sharing, and remembering. And over time, it reshapes how we experience urban space.
Think of a place such as Hillbrow. We know it's full of culture, hustle, and architectural richness, but unless it fits an aesthetic, retro, gritty, curated, cool type of thing, it really trends. And when it does, it's usually framed through lenses of raw energy or danger. That's not just a platform issue, it's a spatial inequality issue.
The algorithm, whether we like it or not, has become a mechanism of spatial storytelling. It decides whose stories are amplified and whose remain invisible. It's sorting what is desirable, valuable, and worthy of engagement. Moving on to our next segment, where we aim to understand collective intelligence and this idea of invisible governance.
So let's bring in theory. From the course we studied, collective intelligence, the idea that urban knowledge is no longer top-down. Instead, it's distributed. Citizens, users, even algorithms all participate in producing urban meaning.
This radically shifts what counts as planning. Before, planning was about technical knowledge, documents, professionals, policies. But now, people plan through participation, storytelling, and creation.
And here's the twist. The algorithm is part of that collective intelligence. It doesn't just reflect what people like, it learns, predicts, and amplifies certain behaviors. It becomes a non-human planner, one that co-produces urban perception.
But let's be real, the algorithm doesn't have a social justice lens. It doesn't care about inclusion, accessibility, or equity. It just amplifies what performs well. That's dangerous.
Exactly. As Benedri and Myers argue, planners must become interpreters of competing narratives, emotional signals, and public imagination. But what happens when an algorithm is doing the interpretation for us, and worse, without transparency?
It means we're living in a feedback loop where popular spaces get more visible and less visible ones get erased. It's soft planning through visibility metrics. Moving on to our next segment, who gets seen, who gets erased?
So let's stay in Joburg for a second. Rosebank, Braam, and Santon show us constantly in TikTok content. There are dozens of geotagged guidelines such as best rooftops in Rosebank, hidden gems in Parkhurst, aesthetic spots in Maboneng. But what about Alexandra, or Zola, or even Deep Sloot?
These spaces have rich stories, but the algorithm tends to ignore them unless they're framed as authentic, grit, or township aesthetics. This is where we start to see the algorithm as a gatekeeper of urban identity.
And here's where Moroni, 2020, is so useful. He says that digital systems are becoming new layers of spatial governance. It's not formal laws doing the sorting now, it's platform logics.
Exactly. Planning has always been about managing space, but now we must think about how digital platforms govern perception and, by extension, influence movement, value, and desire.
Let's make it plain. If you don't show up in the feed, you don't show up in the city. That's a scary idea, especially when it reinforces economic inequalities, racial segregation, and aesthetic biases that already exist.
We're calling this the soft politics of algorithmic urbanism. It's invisible, but still incredibly powerful. We're moving on to this idea around urban psychosis and now a digital feedback loop.
Here's where things get personal and political. If you're constantly performing a version of yourself for digital validation, you start to feel fragmented. You're always adjusting, refining, and filtering.
That's urban psychosis, a feeling of being split between who you are and who the algorithm wants you to be, in space specifically. It doesn't just affect individuals, it affects neighborhoods. It affects how we design, present, and even understand urban space.
So then you find yourself only going to shootable locations. You choose places based on lighting, trendability, not community or connection. And soon the city becomes a set, not a place of belonging.
And just like that, the algorithm hasn't just shaped your content, it's shaped your urban identity. We as planners need to rethink our role.
So, in rethinking the role of planners, so what do we do with this? As planners, do we ignore the algorithm, fight it, ban it, or maybe engage with it critically?
Here's our proposal. Let's treat digital data as part of urban analysis. Let's read TikTok as a spatial archive, a constantly updating map of public sentiment, usage, and even imagination.
And this doesn't mean replacing master plans with content, but it does mean recognizing that every trending sound, every transition video, every food vlog is part of how people are mapping and making the city today.
Planning has to evolve. We need tools, digital ethnography, platform literacy, and algorithmic awareness. We need to become fluent in the systems shaping desire and belonging.
When we say the algorithm is a planner, we're not being metaphorical. We're naming a shift in power from city councils to code, from plans to platforms.
And we're asking, what kind of planner is the algorithm? One that rewards conformity, that erases the margins, that smooths over complexity?
Or can we begin to imagine algorithms as tools, not just of exclusion, but of equity, if used responsibly?
That's the conversation we need to have in lecture halls, in city meetings, and yes, even in the feed.
And that's it for today. And that's it for today's episode. The algorithm is a planner. We explored how visibility, power, and code intersects with identity and urban space.
Next week, we wrap up with City in the Feed, where we look at collective belonging, resistance, and reimagining both planning and the digital age. Thanks for listening, and remember, cities aren't just planned, they're programmed.